Lisa, and today we're gonna dive into so many reviews because we are doing 7 days for 7 thrillers. I like the name. They are not all the same, but they are all surrounding the mystery detective thing or straight up thriller. And I have compiled a list of the ones that I want to review that I've read in 7 days, and so without any further ado, let's get down to the review. So, first book of the list is Ninth House. It's the one that I finished most recently, and I have so many thoughts about this read. Let's say that I saw a 1-star review on YouTube, but let's say that she really convinced me that I was gonna give it 3 stars, but I downgraded it to 2 because I really didn't like it. It's so full of problems. For once, it was very confusing. We have a lot of description that is a bit useless. We are doing something that I love in books, which is going back and forward. But the problem is that it's so very true that you don't understand anything until you understand what happened in the past that made her not the way she is, but it really changed her. And that you discover very much later on in the pages. It's past the halfway point, I think, and I thought that that was really bad for me because I really didn't understand the majority of the beginning, and that was not good for me because I really was going through the book asking myself what the freak was happening. Then we have another point, which is she is half Mexican, so she is mixed race, and this because I've opened the gate for so many interesting reflections. However, what happens is this is glossed over. It gets over with, basically she does some pretty unremarkable comments on race that make her look good, let's say, just because she does these positive comments, and she is a strong female character is what they want you to think, but what she does is really she is bossy and not really in the right most of the time. I would say she really is not, because she bosses people around, does things that are very bad, and just gets away with it because it's making a wrong right doing another wrong. For example, we have rape because both she and her friend get raped. The person that she has seen disappear forced himself on her because he was under substances, and she just brushes it off and she doesn't care. And her friend and roommate is raped, and then she makes the person that raped her do a horrific thing, and this kind of fixes it, and then no one talks about it ever after, and no one cares about it ever after, which is so diminishing towards the people that do suffer from rape. They have backlashes, they have different ways in which they pwn themselves, they have difficulty doing things and having connections, and this is totally diminishing it, as if you do something bad to the person that did you wrong, you're gonna fix everything magically. And so yeah, that wasn't good. Then we have poverty, because she also represents the main character, Galaxy. The person that has gone to local schools is poor, and she has not had a really good education, and somehow she's still in Yale because she has this magic ability to see grays without needing any magic, which is never explained. She just can. And this, oh my god, it was so out of the blue. I wanted an explanation and we just don't get one. And she can see grays, so she goes to Yale and supposedly is struggling at the beginning, but then magically when people help her, she's able to do everything right. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, but that would have been cool to explore the difficulties coming from a poor background, but we never get that because we see them other once. And she is every night into the secret society, the House of Lethe, and then in the morning she's magically studying and doing things with her friends. She's basically not sleeping at all times, and this is not humanly possible after a certain degree if you don't take any substances, which is said that she doesn't, which is impossible. It's impossible. You cannot stay possibly awake for that amount of hours without literally falling asleep if you don't take something. But she doesn't. So that's so weird and untruthful. I didn't like it at all. And we have so many problems in this book. We also have the distance between rich people and poor people, and the fact that rich people do things that are unjust. And at the end, we just have that. Rich people are unfair and unjust, and they never get punished, and that's the message. Oh yeah, unfair. Nothing happens, no one does anything to fix anything, and yeah, some people die. That's it. It's not explored, it's just what is. And there's no fixing, no doing anything about it. It's just, oh yeah, it's like that, I'm gonna do something bad to fix it, that won't fix it, and in the end, everyone is gonna be alright. The rich people are gonna boss around, and the poor people are gonna suffer from it. That's it. Nothing changes. Then we have, in the past, the friends that Galaxy had, and one of them has died, the other one has disappeared, and he is the gentleman, and so he appears so nicely, even though he's the one that forced himself on her, but he was under substances, so we are gonna justify it. And the friend that has died, we learn basically nothing about her because she is portrayed in the same scene over and over and over and over and over again, and she is the best friend, but we don't see that. We just see them taking drugs and one of them almost dying. That's it. So that is crazy. The story in itself had so many similarities to two other books that I suggest instead of this one. One is Crescent City and the other one is Legendborn. Crescent City, why? Because the friend in the past, he half dead. We don't even understand that if he's dead or alive. He could be dead, he could be alive, and we have this continuous reminiscing factor of this friend. We reminisce him with longing, and we have things that get discovered that the friend was researching surrounding this murder mystery, and the same exact thing happens in Crescent City, but so much better, because the friend we are talking about is an actual friend of the main character in Crescent City, and she actually has an impact on the story that goes beyond the fact of being beautiful, and have done a bunch of research. So I think that that was a direct spin-off from Crescent City, but then we have this love aspect and element that comes out that is completely unnecessary and doesn't really do any justice to the story. And then the second story is Legendborn, because we have this whole, as I said, racial aspect, poverty, diversity, abusing black people or poor people to do things and exploiting them. And in that book, it gets explored. It's great. We have a massive, great exploration. We have secret societies. We have all of that jazz, but done a million times better. It's so good. It makes me ache thinking that that book has the same exact things and doing it so bad, because we have the House of Lethe reference at the end of each chapter. This is the secret society Galaxy is in, and it makes no sense. It's a bunch of super secret words that end up explaining nothing, and I didn't get them at all. It's not divided by anything. It's just coming from the House of Lethe book that no one ever seems to read. I don't know where it comes from. I didn't understand it. It was super superficial. And the review that I watched made also the point that the only villain characters are the only adults in the story. And yeah, I agree. They are the only adults, they are the only evil ones. And even though we have the main character that is pretty evil herself, but just because she suffered a lot because of Greys and was abused by a Grey and raped by a Grey, she is automatically justified of all of her bad actions, and we have to see her as a good person even though she is absolutely not. And you can see rape trope again and again and again. And being abused by the Grey impacts her, but being abused by her friend doesn't, for some reason. And her friend being abused has no impact at all. We don't see her ever again. So why double standards? So yeah, after all of these streak of complaints, I'm gonna say that this book was a 2-star for me, and I don't suggest it, even though so many people loved it. I really didn't. So a no for me. Let's pass on to the second one. And then we have The It Girl. It's one book that I did listen to on script. I was suggested that from Bookstagram, and oh my god, that one I finally liked. In that case, we have the character that does stay awake all of the freaking time and does school, does go out with friends, does theater plays. She does so many things, and guess what? She is on drugs. She is. And that's normal, because you cannot possibly stay awake for that amount of time without help from something. You cannot. It's physically impossible. She is a pretty bad person, but the main character doesn't care at all. She loves April, and April is the it girl, the perfect one, the one on drugs, the one that does everything perfect, super beautiful, super rich. And what does she do all the time? She completely bosses around a friend that is the best friend only in the best friend's mind, so the main character's mind. And she does boss her around. She gifts her with super expensive makeup and lends her super expensive clothes, and that's super beautiful. Hannah is the name of the main character, and she is super impressed by it, because in her poor girl's shoes she doesn't fit. And this is so diminishing towards poor people, or people that don't have the possibility to buy a Gucci bag every day because their daddy is rich. And I really didn't like that point of the story. We have this whole going back to being rich as if that was the only thing that mattered and the only thing that could make you popular and interesting, even though it's completely not. Someone can rock a dollar store clothing and dollar store makeup with as much confidence as someone rocking a Gucci bag. So I didn't agree with that at all. It was a lot of poverty shaming for no reason, because if someone doesn't have the means to buy those expensive things, it doesn't mean that cheaper things are automatically bad just because they're cheap. This is not good at all. April was not good, and as I said, at some point she dies, and it's the whole thing about investigating her murder, which Hannah does, and she is also pregnant, which is not a surprising pregnancy trope, thank God, because that I would have given 0 to the book, but I gave it 4.5 stars because the whole investigation is so great. It's super suspenseful, and we don't understand what happens until the very end, and we don't understand who did it until they basically tell us. So that's great, because in some of the books you can see the ending from afar, and I loved it. And talking about books that you can see the ending from afar, the next one is one of them. So this is Then She Was Gone from Lisa Greghi, and this book was predictable. That's the only way I can describe it, because we know what happened from the super beginning, and as a reader we understand who did it. I listened to it on audiobook. I understood it at the 27% mark. I'm not gonna dive into this super much. We have on my blog the review for all of the books that I mentioned, or they will come out, so you can click in the description down below the link to the blog and see all of them if you want. If you're interested, you can subscribe and like the blog. But yeah, overall this book was predictable. We have this girl that disappears. She is the perfect girl, and we have this mother that is consumed by guilt until she meets this wonderful guy that she hangs out with, and his daughter is super similar to the missing girl, Ellie. And so we have the whole story about how this ended up happening and who took Ellie and how and what happened to her and everything. And well, that was boring at times because we knew everything and the description wasn't great and the writing wasn't great, and yeah, it was just a story that we understood very soon and that had so many pages that were a bit too much. But overall, apart from that detail, I gave it a 4-star because why not? It was not completely worthless and shameless, so it was okay. The Seventh Victim. This was a good book. This is a 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. It is from the Audible originals. I'm sorry, there's a thunderstorm outside. Well, oops. But Seventh Victim, it was great. It was so good. We not only have the mother because her son disappears and he never gets found, and she is consumed by the thought that she can never meet him again. So we have the whole aspect that we explored in that she was gone badly explored well. So for example, what happens to the siblings because they get neglected and they don't end up opening themselves, and we have the sibling has a son and calls him like the brother that disappeared, and there is a lot of beautiful exploration of grief and what it does to you and everything you lose from it. And so it was really great to explore. But not only that, we had so many extracts from the killer himself that explains everything, and it's really interesting. It really keeps you on edge. It really does a good job at being a thriller. So this one is one that I will recommend all the time because it's so good, and I suggest it so much because it really is great. And this book is by Michael Wood, and it's great. I would suggest it, or like if you have an Audible subscription, listen to it. On Audible, I also listened to Closer, and this is a more complicated story. It's a story that doesn't revolve around a murder necessarily, but it's basically the story surrounding this mother that has divorced her husband, and he's a complete douche towards her. He is disgusting towards her, and he does simply get along. When they divorce, he does meet someone else. It shuts her out of her life, discards her worries completely. Like, he doesn't care at all about everything that she's worried about, just pinpointing her as a freak basically. And he ends up dating Joanne, which is the ex-wife's boss, and we have this whole exploration of what Joanne does to her daughter and to her husband, and the fact that Joanne might be a potential killer and her daughter is a complete douche, more than the mother possibly. And yeah, the two of them plot something, and it's just exploring the destruction of a family, and also the fact that her girl Macy suffers from an eating disorder at some point. She's very young, and this is triggered by someone that teaches her that you discover later on in the story, and that takes the blame away from Joanne. And it's kind of confusing at some point, but it's really interesting because it's very hopeless. That's the whole point of the book. It's very hopeless because it really explores what it feels to be disregarded and with people that never listen to you, and what you say is basically pointless and no one cares. So I really thought it was really well written, and I liked it. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Not as good as The Seventh Victim, but it was good. Then I decided to put in Carrie by Stephen King because I thought that was a kind of thriller, and I liked the story. Carrie is a very peculiar character. Stephen King doesn't shy away from making ugly characters and people that are very difficult to stand, but she has special powers. She is able to move objects and do things with telekinesis, and everything ends up rolling by when she sets fire to a school. And so we have the before and after that moment and what happens, and it's quite terrifying in some way, and it really also explores what it means for a child to grow under the influence of an abusing parent, overly religious parent that doesn't allow her any normality because of her thoughts, beliefs and obsessions. It was really good. I gave it 5 stars. It was very well written and I would suggest it. It's not necessarily a murder mystery, but we have the murder element into it and the element of terrifying everyone because you can do something special that no one else can do and they're scared of it because Carrie is simply different. And then lastly we have Where They Wait. This is another different book, I would say, from the other ones. Where They Wait is a story where the main character is in a desperate need for a job. He goes to find this job and has to work on an app that helps you get to sleep, and when it does that, it puts into your mind some kind of illusions, and there is this person inside the app that asks you to come with them and come to them, and what the app ultimately does is that it kills you, and so you are unable to stop the app when it starts, and you are unable to delete it, you are unable to not play it, because even if you are already sleeping, the app starts playing and it forces you to listen to the app, and the main character is the only one that has the possibility to kind of avoid the consequences of the app, because after his father's death, his mother did something to him that changed him and made him immune to all of that jazz. So we discover what it is, and it was really interesting. Scary again. I really loved it because it really explored the realm of the dead in a way that is really modern, because we have the app inside it, and it was really different from many other thrillers that I read, and we don't have the murder mystery all the time. We have someone that dies, but we discover in the end who killed him, and we discover why everything was relevant from the beginning. I really liked this book. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars as well. So the best one of the list is The Seventh Victim and Carrie. They are really good. I would suggest them, and I really hope you liked this video. I really liked reviewing a bunch of books in one sitting because I read so many, I won't end up reviewing all of them. And if you liked this video, please thumb it up and subscribe to the channel, and I really hope to see you all in the next one. Bye guys!